Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone out there in the internet, whether you are watching us on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast. This is Lancing with Myself, the 5-minute weekly show where I, Steve D from Tin Star Games, talk to you about being a game designer or freelance creative when you are low on spoons and low on cash. And last week we were talking about knowing when to stop and giving your game over to the universe, to the audience. And ultimately, being an artist, being a game designer particularly, you have to give your game away. You have to give it to playtesters, you have to give it to the players, and eventually you give it to the market and you give it to them and they decide what they do with it. So that can be very scary. I mean, there's no getting around that. It is terrifying. I am really terrified of playtests. I just, blows my mind how terrifying that is. And it's not going to get easier for me. It's never really going to be not terrifying to go, does this work? But the flip side is I'm not worried about reviews, because if I can get something once in a million times that actually works and get it to production and let it go like we talked about last week, then I'm done. And no review can hurt me. No slings and arrows can trouble me. I mean, and I think I can apply that back to playtesting, You need to understand that there is a process of creation that creates something and puts it out there, and ultimately, the reviews and the critics are something that shouldn't really shake you. Now, obviously, when you're playtesting, you have to listen to them because you have to make something that works. You cannot just create something in isolation. So it is different. They're not quite the same thing. You need to be zen about playtesting and not let it get under your skin. But with reviews, you don't even have to be zen, because nobody's going to like everything you make. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what other people think. From a business point of view, yes, of course, a bad review, even a single bad review or a bad experience from someone, a comment on an internet forum. These days, the market is extremely touchy, and one bad review can wipe out your success. But if you're an artist as well, like the game design part of you, the art design part of you, it's not about success. It's about making what is important and what's true and what's good. And that's not something that can be really summed up in a review. A good critic can probably unpack, something, and a good critic's opinion is worthwhile, but a review ultimately is, it's not for you. It's not about you. It's not even about your product. The critic exists to inform the public about what things in art is good. So critics work for the public. Reviewers work for the public. Their job is to interact with your art form and try to present it to others. Now, whether they do that fairly or not, that doesn't reflect on you. And if you've done what we talked about before, if you've stopped and put something aside, then you've already reflected on it, and you know its strengths and its weaknesses. And if you are an honest creator, you know those strengths and weaknesses honestly to yourself. You've thought about them, and that's something that's worth doing. Because again, it comes back to if you really understand your work, if you've finished it, put it out there and gone, look, that is the best I could do right now. It's out there, it's done, and I recognize that there are strengths and weaknesses to it. Because it's not perfect. You're not God. This isn't the greatest epitome of creation. It's done, it's out there. Take a moment, reflect on it, understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, what happened at that process, what the strengths and weaknesses of that product are. And then the rest is silence. It's up to the reviewers. I think that is how I think about reviews, is that I welcome them, because there's no such thing as a bad review, really. What we were trying to do as an artist is get people to play our games and think about our games and react to our games. As an artist, we're saying, please notice this. Please be my audience. And the moment a reviewer does that, they've touched your game, they've played your game, they've thought about your game, they've talked about your game, they've reflected on your game, and what else could you possibly want? That's the goal. And even if they go, here's my problem with it, here's the things I didn't like, if that causes other people not to play it, that's actually good, because you wouldn't want someone to come into something with the wrong idea and play something that they don't like. Not everything is for everyone. and a reviewer that's doing their job well is going to direct people to what they want. And the industry, has grown so much. There's just so much variety out there. Now, as I say, it's not the same as making a bad game, but if you're the kind of person who's listening to this, then you're obviously someone who's dedicated and keen to learn, and you're putting your art out there and working hard and working seriously on things, and that's what matters. So don't fear bad reviews. There really isn't anything really bad publicity when it comes to being an artist. You want people to talk about your games. You want people to interconnect with your games. The last thing you want is to be ignored. And if a reviewer, God bless them, picks it up, talks about it, reacts, and spreads that, that is the best thing ever. So yes, playtesting is hard, and you can be zen about it, but reviews, there's nothing to be feared. A review is the best thing you could possibly want. And with that in mind, if anyone wants to review my games, get in touch and I'll send them to you for free. And the same thing, you should do that. If you've got games, as soon as you've got copies, you got to get out there to that symbiotic relationship and just throw review copies at everyone you can. Because all you need is to get people playing your game and talking about your game. And there's so many games out there. You've got to throw it out there and get the people talking. Don't fear reviews, whatever you do, and don't ever do anything but welcome reviews. Good, bad, you just want reviews. So hunger for them, support those who do it, and don't worry about the bad ones. Reviews are what matter. Good or bad isn't important. That's all for today. I hope that helps you. Till next time, be good, play games, pat dogs, and have fun.